Coming up in our newscast tonight. Washington's defense chief claims combined drills with Seoul will no longer be suspended. South Korea has not heard directly from U.S. Secretary of Defense James Mattis regarding the matter, but says such subject requires close discussions between the allies. Meeting with hundreds of public organization workers, President Moon Jae-in highlights the need to change the nation's economic structure. He also addressed his flagship policy of income-led growth, saying it's not a choice but a matter of vital importance. Heavy rain is expected to continue in most parts of the nation this week. Until Thursday, residents of Seoul and Gyeonggi-do province should brace themselves for possible damage from flooding. News Center begins now. It's 8 p.m. here in Korea, coming to you live from our studio in Seoul. This is Arirang News Center. Welcome to our program. I'm Daniel Che. Seoul-Washington combined drills have been halted back in June as a gesture of good faith to North Korea. Well, now the U.S. opened the door to restarting the exercise the regime dreads. However, the South Korean government claims to have heard nothing of the resumption, adding it's a subject that needs to be discussed. Park Hee-jun has our top story.
South Korea's presidential office says the issue of suspending joint military exercises with the United States requires further discussion between the two countries. This comes after U.S. Secretary of Defense James Mattis said at a news conference at the Pentagon on Tuesday local time that the U.S. has no future plans to call off any drills with South Korea.
We have no plans at this time to suspend any more exercises. We will work very closely, as I said, with the Secretary of State, and what he needs done, we will certainly do to reinforce his effort. But at this time, there is no discussion about further suspensions.
Earlier in June, after the Kim-Trump summit in Singapore, Mattis announced that the U.S. had suspended the exercises indefinitely. As a result, the annual Ulji Freedom Guardian exercise was canceled in August. Just hours after Mattis made his latest remarks, Blue House spokesperson Kim Mi-kyum told reporters that South Korea and the U.S. had not discussed the matter. Although the earlier decision only applied to this year's exercises, he said that any changes in the agreement will be negotiated in step with the progress made in denuclearization talks between Pyongyang and Washington. South Korea's foreign ministry says it sees the comments as an extension of Washington's previous agreement with Seoul to suspend the joint exercises and that no new agreement has been made. It added that it will continue to work closely with the U.S. for the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. Seoul's defense ministry also says that it had heard nothing of Mattis' announcement and that the issue has not yet been discussed by the two sides. Park Hee-jun, Arirang News.
Mike Pompeo's visit to North Korea was canceled last minute, raising a lot of questions on the state of Washington's relations with the regime. The top diplomat's 2 cents on the developments. Pyongyang will need to show some visible follow-through on agreements made during the Singapore summit. Lee Ji-won tells us more.
The U.S. stands ready to engage when it is clear that North Korea is prepared to deliver on the commitments it made at the June 12 Singapore summit to completely denuclearize. This is U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's take on the current situation following the cancellation of his 4th trip to Pyongyang. It was shared by the department's spokesperson Heather Nauert at a briefing on Tuesday. Pompeo's statement went on to say that the world is united behind the need for North Korea to fulfill that commitment and that members of the UN Security Council have voted to call upon North Korea to abandon all nuclear weapons. He said the final fully verified denuclearization of Pyongyang is the world's goal and the world is looking forward to North Korea's compliance with the resolutions for a brighter future for its people. This comes after a Washington Post report claimed that Trump canceled Pompeo's trip due to a belligerent letter from a senior North Korean official, which convinced the president that the planned visit would not be successful. And on Tuesday, CNN reported that the letter stated Pyongyang felt talks couldn't move forward because the U.S. is still not ready to meet North Korea's expectations in terms of taking a step forward to sign a peace treaty. Pyongyang has been urging Washington to declare the end of the Korean War. CNN cited 3 sources with direct knowledge on the issue who said that if a compromise cannot be reached, Pyongyang could resume nuclear and missile activities, hinting of the possibility that denuclearization talks are at stake and may fall apart. Meanwhile, U.S. Ambassador to the UN Nikki Haley said it's a possibility that North Korea may be changing its mind on denuclearization at a conference on Tuesday. She made the remarks to stress that regardless, the U.S. will not change its mind on sanctions and how it looks at the North's nuclear threats. She warned there's always more it can do in terms of sanctions, but Washington will continue to try and do that along with its diplomatic efforts. 이지원, Arirang News.
Japan's senior officials apparently sat down for talks with their North Korean counterparts, with the main topic likely being the regime's abduction of its citizens. Tokyo apparently arranged the meeting without keeping the U.S. in the loop, as they feel the issue cannot be resolved by depending on Washington alone. For details, let's turn to our Oh Jung-hee.
It's being reported that North Korea and Japan held secret talks in Vietnam last month without informing the United States. The Washington Post reports the talks were held in July between the head of Japan's Cabinet Intelligence and Research Office, Shigeru Kitamura, and Kim Sung-hye, the North's senior official in charge of reunification. The report says senior U.S. officials expressed irritation Tokyo did not provide information about the meeting. But it added Japanese officials believe they cannot solely rely on the U.S. to solve the issue of Japanese nationals abducted by the North in the 1970s and 80s. The issue has been a stumbling block in Pyongyang and Tokyo improving their relations, and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has continuously called on the U.S. to try and resolve it. Meanwhile, a Japanese tourist who was detained in North Korea was sent home on Tuesday. Tomoyuki Sugimoto, who's said to be a video journalist, arrived in Tokyo on Tuesday after flying in from China. He was reportedly detained in early August for filming a military facility in Nampo, a city located some 50 kilometers southwest of Pyongyang. Japan's foreign ministry plans to question him on why and how he was detained, what he had to go through before being released, and what North Korea's intentions are. Sources say Sugimoto could have been released after such a short period of time because his alleged crime was relatively minor. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
Well, some may be thinking perhaps this is not a great time for President Moon Jae-in to go on with the scheduled summit in Pyongyang. And then there are top officials who believe things should proceed as planned to help turn things around amid the current stalled situation. Kim Mo-kyun provides a closer look.
South Korea's foreign and unification ministers say the South Korean government needs to prepare for and go ahead with the upcoming inter-Korean summit so it can contribute to denuclearization. At a parliamentary hearing of the Budget Committee on Wednesday, Foreign Minister Kang Kyung-hwa said that with progress towards denuclearization seeming to slow down, President Moon Jae-in's visit to Pyongyang for talks in September could play a big role.
With no apparent progress on North Korea's denuclearization, the burden on South Korea is big. If things aren't going so well for the North and the US, then the South Korean president absolutely has a role.
She noted that the lack of notable developments in the North's disarmament was the reason U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo abruptly canceled his trip there. But she added that Pyongyang and Washington still have momentum for dialogue. When the questions turned to Unification Minister Cho Myung-kyun, Cho agreed with the foreign minister, saying it's now all the more crucial for President Moon to go to Pyongyang.
Now that Pompeo's trip is cancelled, September's inter-Korean talks are even more important for denuclearization.
He said that just like how the two Korean leaders made a breakthrough at their talks in May, at a time when Washington had cancelled its scheduled summit with North Korea, the next Moon-Kim summit could also get things moving again. Asked whether Washington agreed with an inter-Korean summit taking place next month, the foreign minister said that since the summit was agreed to in the Panmunjom Declaration, the United States will fully understand. Kim Mo-kyun, Arirang News.
President Moon Jae-in met with officials from public institutions to re-emphasize the government's role in serving the people. The South Korean leader also urged those organizations to do their part in propelling the administration's innovative growth. Shin Se-min shares with us his remarks.
Meeting Wednesday with heads and officials from some 240 public sector organizations, President Moon Jae-in impressed on them the importance of their service being focused on the people, not those with power. He said public organizations are the closest to the people's daily lives and that they should communicate with them and give them support in times of hardship, as he pinpointed some of the recent irregularities involving public institutions. He then highlighted the important role of such organizations in bringing together the public and private sectors. He also said they should be the leaders of innovative growth, one of the 3 signature economic policies being pushed by the administration.
에너지 신산업과 스마트팜, 스마트 시티에 대한 지원과 투자가 더욱 활성화되어야 할 것입니다. 정부의 자세도 새롭게 하겠습니다. 각 공공기관이 자유롭게 도전하고 혁신할 수 있도록 자율성을 최대한 보장하겠습니다.
The president also addressed his flagship policy of income-led growth, saying it's a matter of vital importance.
변화는 선택의 문제가 아니라 생존의 문제입니다. 정부는 모든 정책 수단을 동원해 반드시 우리 경제의 구조와 체질을 바꾸고 성장 잠재력을 최대한 키울 것입니다.
He added that the current economic structure is only fueling polarization, which can never ensure the country's sustainable growth, saying that the sustainability of growth depends on how the country addresses inequalities between the haves and have-nots. Shin Sa-min, Arirang News.
There have been rumors of discord between Presidential Policy Chief Chang Ha-sung and Finance Minister Kim Dong-yeon. Perhaps such noise will be silenced as the country's top 2 economic policymakers held their second regular meeting today. Back in July, their first such session, the duo agreed to hold regular meetups every other week to review the country's economic circumstances. But the fact that they didn't hold another until now fueled concerns that 2 officials aren't on the same page in terms of policies to fix the nation's falling employment numbers and worsening income distribution. President Moon named his pick for Chief Justice of the Constitutional Court. He is one of the justices already on the court. Yoon Nam-seok is tapped to replace the outgoing Chief Justice Lee Jin-sung next month, but first he'll have to go through a parliamentary confirmation hearing. If appointed, Yu's term will start retroactively with his tenure as a justice, which means he'll serve until the year 2022. The nation was thoroughly drenched yesterday. More precipitation is expected as the week progresses. In some parts, the heavy downpour caused damages and even left casualties. According to our Yoon Jung-min, various advisories are being issued to ensure residents stay out of harm's way.
South Korea will see heavy rainfall and cloudy skies until Thursday, with more damage expected due to flooding. As of Wednesday at 6:40 p.m., the government has issued a heavy rain warning for Seoul, Incheon, and Namyangju. It advises residents to stay away from flooded roads and coastal areas. The Korea Meteorological Administration says a maximum of 150 millimeters of rain is forecast in Seoul, and more than 250 millimeters is forecast for Gyeonggi-do province. Southern parts of the country will see around 80 millimeters of rainfall, while Jeju Island will have some 50 millimeters. According to the weather agency, the country will see more torrential rain and showers until Thursday. On Wednesday, Gangwon-do province was hit particularly hard by the heavy rain, with reports of flooding and people requiring rescue operations. The authorities say people in the region should be aware of possible mudslides caused by the downpour.
Already heavy rain fell today. It will weaken the soil. When more rain falls, it is likely to cause mudslides.
The Safety Ministry said that Tuesday's heavy thunderstorm and strong winds caused 1 death and 2 injuries in Seoul. More than 760 cases of flooding were reported in Seoul, Daejeon, and Gyeonggi-do province, and 41 households were evacuated nationwide. Several roads were blocked due to floods, and landslide advisories were issued in the country's mountainous areas. Residents are advised to brace for possible damage as more rain is expected this week. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
Moving on to other stories now, small business owners vow to respond to the drastic minimum wage hike. Today, they gather in the capital demanding changes as they are hit hard by the government move. Kim Hye-sung files this report from Gwanghwamun Square.
Even the heavy rain can't deter them. More than 30,000 people from about 150 different associations, including the Korea Federation of Micro Enterprise, staged a protest in central Seoul. Small business owners and the self-employed from across the country gathered Tuesday in Gwanghwamun Square, demanding changes to the government's minimum wage hike. The Moon administration raised the minimum wage by over 16% this year and has decided to raise it by another 10.9% next year. That would bring it to about $7.50. The protest came despite the government's announcement last week of support for small business owners hit by the wage hike, including a cut in credit card service charges and an increase in subsidies.
The government support measures are just a quick fix and are far from realistic. Regarding subsidies, only those who have insurance can apply, meaning only about a third of the self-employed can actually get them. This requirement should be changed.
According to the OECD, about 5.7 million or 1 in 5 Koreans are self-employed. Data from the Bank of Korea show loans to the self-employed in retail, wholesale, restaurants, and lodging hit $172 billion in the second quarter this year, marking the biggest on-quarter jump since 2008. The number of jobs added in July also plunged to 5,000 compared to a monthly average last year of 300,000.
Sales haven't changed, but labor costs have shot up due to higher wages. Profits plunged about 30% compared to the same period last year. Raising the minimum wage to improve quality of life is good, but all that burden is on us, small business owners.
Protesters demanded changes such as applying different wage rates to different sectors and detailed measures about how the government provides subsidies to small businesses with fewer than 5 people. But the government has already laid out support measures, including more fiscal spending for the lower income brackets, so it remains to be seen whether those demands will be met. Kim Hye-sung, Arirang News.
Should non-financial companies be allowed to increase their stake in branchless banks to help expand their businesses? While the debate rages on in Parliament, Korea's first online-only bank launched a system that allows its users to access ATM services in hundreds of convenience stores without a bank card. Oh Se-young zooms in on how they are breaking new ground.
If you've lost or forgotten your wallet, you need to look no further than your own hand to take out money at a convenience store. Korea's first web-only bank, K-Bank, has launched a palm print recognition service for some 1,700 of its cash machines at convenience stores across the nation. There's no need to root through your bag for your bank card or your smartphone. All you have to do is simply press your hand onto the scanner and you have access to all your usual ATM services in a matter of seconds. The service is available all around the clock. The biometric security measure is one of the ways branchless banks are attempting to appeal to the mainstream market, especially as brick-and-mortar banks have already adopted the technology.
This cutting-edge technology benefits branchless banks as it offers customers greater accessibility to banking services offline, making up for their lack of physical outlets.
This comes amid a debate in political and financial circles on lifting regulations on Korea's 2 branchless banks, K-Bank and KakaoBank. Under the current banking law, non-financial businesses cannot hold more than 10% of stocks in banks and a 4% stake in the boardroom. As both branchless banks are operated by IT firms, they have complained that the current law restricts their inflow of capital, hindering expansion. While the regulations may be lifted, some experts say web-only banks will need more convincing business models to attract investment.
There is still some reluctance when it comes to investing in branchless banks. They should focus on their fundamental reason for their establishment, what brick-and-mortar banks don't offer, and that's reaching out to those without easy access to traditional banking services and offering mid-tier interest loans, peer-to-peer lending, for instance.
In order to stay competitive, the expert says web-only banks must overcome the drawbacks of being branchless by coming up with innovative customer services and technologies. Oh Se-young, Arirang News.
Experts from G20 nations are currently in Seoul to experience and get a better understanding of this country's culture. The annual forum has been playing a crucial role in encouraging cultural figures to further spread the Korean appeal in their home countries. Seo Eun-kyung takes us there.
Korean culture is presently known to them mostly for its quirky pop songs and celebrities, but more traditional elements of its culture could also have massive global appeal. That is according to leading cultural figures from 10 different countries specializing in arts, food, literature, and photography, who convened in Seoul for a 2-day cultural forum. Experiencing authentic Korean culture for themselves, the experts said they saw potential for wide international appeal. Amy Chu, author of American comic book Wonder Woman, additionally emphasized that Seoul has inspired her so much she would like to draw comics based on the city. Chu and other experts said social media had been particularly helpful in letting them get to know about Korean culture as well as other international audiences.
What I have seen is some of the online web comics is I want to see what the storylines are, because I think some of them are very innovative. The promotion, the better, because I think not just Americans, but the rest of the world is very hungry for content, and social media has been very effective.
The cultural figures also added that they found international potential in hanbok, Korea's traditional garment, due to its graceful design and universally appealing aesthetic.
Very stylish, in a totally international way, and I will be happy invited this tradition to our museum.
The Culture Communication Forum is the ideal venue for the attendees to gain a better understanding of Korean culture. By digesting their thoughts and suggestions, Korea hopes to raise its cultural clout on the world stage. 서은경, Arirang News.
It's another golden day for Team South Korea. We finished on top in various events, including judo, cycling, paragliding, and the first gold medal in javelin this decade. In men's football, we cruised to the finals with a 3-1 victory, but it's bittersweet as the Taeguk Warriors easily outmatched Vietnam, coached by a legendary figure from Korea's 2002 World Cup run. We turn to our hope of win for the Asian Games highlights.
South Korea picked up gold medals in several events on Wednesday. South Korean track cyclist Park Sang-hoon defeated his Japanese opponent and picked up a gold in the men's 4,000-meter individual pursuit. Earlier in the day, in the preliminaries, Park has set an Asian Games record of 4 minutes and 19.672 seconds. In paragliding, South Korea also won a gold in the women's team cross-country event. In a total of 5 rounds, the women scored 4,924 points. This is the first Asian Games with paragliding as an official event, and it's now wrapped up. The South Korean paragliders in total are taking home 1 gold, 2 silver, and 3 bronze. In women's judo, Jung Bo-kyung defeated her Japanese opponent in the under 48 kg class to win her first Asian Games gold. The tournament went into extended matches, and Jung scored first to win in 1 minute 22 seconds. South Korea also picked up some medals in athletics. In the women's pole vault finals, Im Eun-ji earned a bronze medal, achieving her season best of 4 meters 20 centimeters. It's the second time she has won bronze at the Asian Games, following her third-place finish at Incheon 2014. As the only South Korean to ever win a pole vault medal at the Asian Games, she says she hopes her medal helps raise interest in the sport. In the women's javelin throw event, Kim Kyung-hae won South Korea's first medal in javelin since the 2002 Busan Asian Games. She took home bronze in the event after missing out on the medals in 2010 and 2014. Over in soft tennis, Kim Jin-woong won the men's singles final, defeating his Indonesian opponent 4-2 to earn a gold medal. It's the third Asian Games in a row that the gold medal in the men's singles event has gone to a South Korean. The highlights later on Wednesday include the women's hockey semifinals at 7:30 p.m. Korea time, the men's 200-meter final at 9:05 p.m., and the men's synchronized 10-meter platform diving at 10:15 p.m. 서보빈, Arirang News.
Time to turn to Michelle Buck at the Weather Center for the updates you'll need. Michelle, heavy rain alerts are being issued for more and more locations. What's the current status?
Well, Daniel, many northern and the central regions, including Seoul, are under heavy rain warnings. And along with some thunder and lightning, we are expecting to see some places receiving at least 50 millimeters of precipitation per hour. Until tomorrow morning, Seoul and the northern Gyeonggi-do and Gangwon-do provinces could receive more than 250 millimeters of precipitation, while the rest of Gyeonggi-do province and the capital area should expect between 150 and 200 millimeters of rain until the sun rises. And in particular, these places have been alerted of possible landslides and flooding as well. So please take the necessary precautions and check the forecast before heading outside. And the entire nation is expected to be cloudy or rainy at times. Now, meanwhile, Beijing is also forecast to have a rainy day tomorrow, followed by some drops in temperatures. Now, in Seoul, where heavy downpours will continue until the morning, the temperature will hit a low of 23 degrees Celsius, whereas Jeju will be cloudy and hot at 26 degrees. Into the afternoon, the rain clouds will gradually move down south, while highs will hover around 29 and 32 degrees across the whole country. I'll leave you with the weather conditions around the world.
These are the stories we could pack into our newscast today. As always, thanks for staying with us.